Hey guys, here's my gear. Yaqi 24 millimeter finest badger, open comb version of the 68 timeless stainless steel, Nacet blade, which has 208 uses on it, and Barrister and Mann Rsrv spice scent, kind of like Old Spice. So let's get going. We already have the Nacet blade in there, and this is my 205. It was it's 208 now, right? There's a little X right there in that corner, or the top portion of it. The other part's been rubbed away. And this is one of the most comfortable razors that I have. I've had to step up in aggression. And I don't know, it just curves the blade the right way, to whereas if I just have a one-day shave, it's actually only a little bit of tugging. It's not really a big deal at all. Why am I doing that, you ask? That's a good question. This is just a because it's there kind of answer. This is my first one that I've taken this far. It's my first one that I ever got to 100. It just felt like it could keep going, so I did keep going. So that's kind of why. I'm not planning on taking every Nacet that I use to the maximum level. Maybe next time I use a Nacet, I might just take it to 40 or something like that. I've shown you everything. Throw a little water on my face. I just kind of have a scientific curiosity with how many possible shaves can I get from a blade. And that's why I keep going with this guy. If he gets too uncomfortable, I'll quit. If he stops giving me a good close shave, I'll quit. Who knows when that'll be. Now, it's not for money because these blades are super cheap. And so I've got 200 uses on it now, and the blade was probably 15 cents to begin with. So money's not really the issue. But why would I keep going? A lot of people think that maybe 5 uses, 7, 8, 3 is the right number to stop. And maybe it is for them. But I think a lot of people are missing out on a nice smooth range that's a little bit farther than that. Maybe between 10 and 20. Especially if you use aggressive razors. Usually it's pretty easy to go beyond that. For mild razors, sometimes you have to stop a little sooner, at least in my experience. It can help your technique if you stretch your blade life, because you have to have good technique to push it past those few introductory uses. And so you can get better technique by trying to push your blades further in terms of the pressure you use, the angle. You need to have wet lathers. Now, in my guess, it's just a guess, I think the wet lathers are something that helps me to keep the blade wear maybe down more than others. Don't know. And so there's some nice reasons to try it every once in a while. And also, I love the fact that I could go out and buy the most expensive blade out there. If it happened to work well for me, if I could use it 20 or 30 times, then that most expensive blade out there becomes as cheap as dirt. And I mean, they're already pretty cheap anyway, but there are some pricey ones. I haven't really needed to use those, except I guess Kai and maybe Feather are the most expensive ones that I use on a regular basis. Pole silvers are getting kind of expensive right now because there's a little bit of a low supply. There's rumor that they've stopped producing them. Who knows? That's been a rumor for years. Who knows if it's true? Who knows if they have a warehouse somewhere with billions of these blades, and so maybe they're out of production, but they're going to be able to keep supplying them for years to come. I don't know. Maybe they have stopped, but good news is I've got enough to last me a long time, especially if I'm getting 30 uses per blade. And then there are other bunch of blades that do well as the pole silvers. All right. So the Barrister and Mann Rsrv. I remember getting this soap in my early wet shaving days, and the face feel on it was silky and tremendous. And I've long mentioned it as one of my favorite bases, as soap bases. The performance that it gives, I'm a big fan of, and so I decided to revisit it because I'd put out a few lists, you know, since I'm a YouTuber. People are curious, what do I think the best bases are? And I decided to revisit this guy because I hadn't in a while. I've got a couple of other Rsrv soaps, but I just decided to use Spice. It's got an Old Spice type scent. Today, let's load for about 40 seconds. And we'll use my normal technique of a fairly dry brush, not dry, but just lightly wet. I'm not going to squeeze it out or anything, but I want to shake out the majority of the water. Okay, let's see, what did I say? 40 seconds, that sounds good, just to make sure we have enough soap. And that'll come around right, nice round number 0 right there. So I'm revisiting this Finest Badger. I've used it twice now. It does have some backbone to it. If that backbone relaxes, then I might be pretty happy with this knot. If it doesn't, I understand. Some Finest brushes just, you know, they don't loosen up very much, and that's great for people who like the backbone, but I'm not one of them. 30 seconds down. It is very pasty at this point. It's possible, it might be advisable to throw in some drops of water, maybe at the 20-second mark. Okay, and there's 40. But I'm curious if I'd stick with kind of the dry load like this. I'm curious what that's going to get me, if anything. If anything different, maybe it'll be exactly the same. All right. So we've got some water in the brush, and then soap is at the tips. So I'm just gonna go at it right now to see if we can get a little bit of that water that's in the brush to combine with some of the soap. If it looks like it's not gonna make too much progress, I'll just start adding water. Some soaps need you to do this, but very few. Most of the time you could just, you know, dump in 2 teaspoons of water or whatever you have figured out you like, and you'll be just fine. Mystic water is one of those that needs to have the water added, to mix it in the while in the bowl before you start adding water, or you can get into a kind of a soupy mess. I added 1 teaspoon just now. So we'll see if this brush softens up. That's one of the ideas behind today's shave. The other idea is to load this soap a little drier than usual. This soap can take a good bit of water. I pushed 5.5 teaspoons in it maybe last time I used it. And it was, you know, it can get sloppy wet and it can still work well on your face. It didn't have that kind of finger viscosity that I prize in my favorite soaps. And so it's possible that I used this soap so long ago and my tastes have changed since then, or I've discovered other bases that just have different attributes that I like better. And so if this guy doesn't get kind of creamy to my fingers, I might change my list of favorite soap bases. Now don't get me wrong, put it on your face, and even if it's a little too kind of wet and not creamy in your fingers, it can still be terrific on your face. And in fact it is. It gives great glide, you know, that sort of thing. Nice protection, good face feel after the shave. It's got some castor oil in it, I believe Will said. That's for that purpose. He said this base, the Rsrv base, was meant to be fairly low structure because of those oils that kind of keep a little bit of weight on it, and so it doesn't puff up like some soaps do. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just an attribute of it. It's like, which is better, red or orange, you know? Certain people may like puffy soaps, high structure soaps, and others may like the lower ones. But I do, and I don't mind the lower structure soaps. There's a few of them out there, especially the new bases, but I want it to have kind of a creamy feel, a luxury feel on my fingers. Not just laying down a slick layer on my face. I mean, there's so many of them that do that. That the ones that are on my favorite list are going to have kind of both instead of just the face feel. So we are not getting a lot of volume, like I said. And indeed, look at the texture of this. It's holding on to those hills and valleys. With most soap bases, that is not enough. Not enough water. Now I believe this guy kind of has a pretty rich load of soap here, and so I want to underload it with water, run it a little drier than usual. And so I think I'm going to add water very slowly. Right now I've got 2.5 teaspoons in it. Again, I only measure to be able to communicate that with you guys in case somebody wants to duplicate. Then you're more able to do that. If I do give out a measurement, you might be able to have a ballpark, especially if you're having trouble with your lathers. Yeah, see, there we go. This has started to increase in volume a little bit. Let's feel it here. Yeah, see, that's still a watery slickness, I think. And I watched the video of this soap and Will lathering. If you just search YouTube for how to lather Barrister and Mann Rsrv, then you'll probably find your way to that video. And when I did it, it was the top one. West Coast Shaving and Will, 3 guys at a table, and Will showed him how to do it. And he would know because he's the maker. And he said that it needs a certain amount of water before it, and he used the right terms, scientific terms or whatever. I'm going to just kind of phrase it by saying it activates. It has to have a certain amount of water before the lather really activates and gets all slick and stuff. You know, just because you add more water, it doesn't make it thin out with some soaps, at least in the beginning. Obviously, once you pass kind of a hill or hump, it stops activating and it starts being too much water for the soap, and then from that point on it would get thinner the more water you added. So I'm just going to keep adding water until this, yeah, see, that's slicker now. A little creamier, so that's good. Let's go ahead and add another. Okay, so that's 4 teaspoons. I did load for 40 seconds, and this is a stiff brush, and so it actually could have pulled up a good bit of soap. Some people say load more soap is often a solution. Well, it depends. It's a solution if you're not loading enough soap, but you know, if you need to add more water or your skills just, you're not mixing for long enough, then adding more soap just means you have to add more water to compensate. Especially if you are a person who likes to load with drier lathers, then if you load more soap, they'll just become even more dry. Well, it looks terrific in the bowl, that's for sure. Nice and shiny, creamy looking. So we've got 4 teaspoons in it. Let's just go ahead and shave with this. Yesterday's shave, I did try to kind of push as much water into it as I could without breaking it. So I did add like 5.5 teaspoons. All right, let's just go with this. I may have had to, it may be an interesting paradox. You know, I want to run it drier than usual, but to be able to activate it, maybe I added so much water that it couldn't be drier than usual. So maybe there's a little bit of a conundrum there. A little water on my face. This cold water. It was freezing here last night. So the groundwater is very cold. I will be bringing in a little bit of warm just to kind of bring it up to lukewarm temperature. Keeps, if I don't use hot, then it's nice because it keeps my face from kind of puffing up. Soothes irritation. This is definitely not too thick. Looks like it's going to be another messy lather, which I'm kind of done with. A messy lather is sometimes a really slick lather that performs really well. And that's okay for some people, but it's not my thing. I don't like them quite that slick. Okay, let's just go back to the puck. Never mind whether it's activated or not. And I hate it when I get my lather right, get my ratios right, and then the stuff starts flinging off. Perfectly good soap that I worked hard to figure out, and then it just lands on the floor or the toilet or all over my shirt. This brush is feeling pretty good. I had it soaking for quite a while, inadvertently. It is a finest badger. I think the tips have been treated, most likely with something like bleach to soften them up. And that's a popular thing that's done with finest badgers. And so I think this brush is, this knot is coming around. Maybe that long soak really allowed it to soften more. I think I'm liking it a lot more now. It's a nice ergonomic handle, this one. Really happy with that. See, this is still, how does the lather feel? This is a high performance lather. It's slick. It's going to protect you. It's going to shave well. It's going to feel really good on the face in terms of moisturizing properties. But in terms of viscosity and a creamy feel, it's a bit lacking. So I believe I'm going to have to take Rsrv off of my list of favorites, and it's been there for a long time. Face feel, if it was only, this is just, look at all this. Nah. A little too messy for me. I don't remember it being messy a couple years ago when I tried it. I rubbed the shaving cream in at the end of yesterday's shave into my face, almost like a moisturizer. I don't usually do that. Some guys do it every time, and it felt really good. All right, take away the non-shavable area soap. Make sure I don't overstep my bounds. On my neck there, sometimes I do that. All right, Nacet, shave 209. About 24 hours worth of growth here. A little bit of tugging. You'll have to go over areas more times with a blade that's this old, at least I am. But that's not really a big deal because I like 3-pass shaving anyway. And the first, with a good fresh blade, it may remove 90% of the stubble. And then it takes care of the rest of it on the second pass. In this kind of scenario, maybe it's removing 50% of the stubble, and then but it still takes care of the rest basically on the second pass. And then the third is just let's clean it up. So in both cases, I'm getting a 3-pass shave. All right, so let's throw on this third pass. I'm going to kind of load up whatever of this wet stuff I have. Wipe a little of the water off my face. Let's just see how it does, see if I need to go. Also, it could be that the the pasty kind of dry load that I did may not be optimal for this soap. Again, just this kind of thin lather. Yeah, if you like backbone, this is a pretty good little brush. It's got soft tips. It's not scratchy at all. Nice soft tips. Don't like the way this lather just keeps flying around. Maybe since the bristles here have a little bit more backbone, maybe it's doing a little bit more flinging of the lather. So maybe part of that is just due to the brush and not like the thinness of the lather. If you do use Rsrv, I've never gotten anything pasty while doing this, and so if you do, and maybe you found this for help, you're likely just not watering it enough. It just needs probably more water or more mix time than you're giving it. So this brush splays not easily, but easily enough for me, I think, at least at this point. Now, this looks like a lather. In some places, it feels too wet. In other places, it feels too dry. Let's just bring in some water. Several drops at a time. Fine tune. You can also put it in the tips. But if you're look out for it coming out the handle, coming out the base of the knot, you don't want that. Now it's messy, but it's definitely going to get the shave done, that's for sure. I have, while I may be griping about the viscosity, and I've tried to say this along the way, the shaves have been great. Slick, enjoyable. Maybe griping about the viscosity and mess, but I'm not talking about the shave because I've been getting really nice, slick shaves. I believe. I made it too thick. So funny that this soap was, you know, too pasty and thin in some places, and too pasty in some places and too thin in other places. It does feel like I need more water in general. You can kind of feel around for that. If you think it might be too pasty, a draggy feeling, you know, add more water and keep adding more water until that disappears. And then you can learn the different kind of feels to look for. Now, many times with this point in the shave, after the second pass, I've almost got a shave I can walk away with. Well, not so much today. And that's all right. Playing around, trying to discover things. You know, if I don't get my declaration grooming puzzle, which if you've been watching the last few days, you know that that's something that's on the horizon, and I'm going to start using it when I get it. If I don't get that today, and I use this again, I'm going to switch to a big old puffy, the opposite of this Badger brush, big old puffy cloud-like Badger, and see, because that is almost certainly the kind of brush I would have been using and enjoying the most back when I was using this soap more regularly. So it's possible that I would get less mess and a nice lather because the stiffness of the brush maybe is not throwing the lather around. Or the lack of stiffness is not throwing the lather around. So this third pass is definitely going to be doing more, having more stubble to cut than usual. Hey, I was talking to a guy the other day. He was asking for help with his carve open comb, and I have a lot of carve videos out, and if you are, and I mention this now because this is an open comb, this is an open comb as well. Let's say you're shaving and you do like this. See those lines right there? If you're not getting a good cut and you're leaving behind lather behind your razor and you get those lines, it's because your handle, the angle of your razor is not right. Your handle is too close to your skin, causing maybe the top cap's not even touching. The blade may actually not be touching your skin as much as you want either. Now, maybe it's giving you exactly what you want, but if it's not, and you see the lines, then that is because the lather is going through getting past the combs and organizing itself into lines, and then the blade is not low enough to the skin, close enough to the skin to pick it up and move it. So now I'll do this same stroke with a better angle. No lines up here at all. They are down here because that's where I was starting, but that's not where I was trying to shave. And likewise, the opposite is true. If you have lather that's left over behind the razor, that is, well, in this case, it's screwing it up because this top cap is scalloped, but with the carve, it's not. If you are leaving lather behind and it's not in the rows, it's more flat, then that's because you have the handle too far away from the skin surface. The front safety bar or comb is not touching, and the blade's not really touching either, and it's just the top cap that is smoothing over the lather. Just work on your angles and you'll be fine. And it may only take a change from this to this. It may not be a big change. Let's see here, strategize now so I don't cut these sensitive areas in the wrong direction. I think that's good. And that spice sure does smell good. I'm going to do another neck pass. My cheeks are fine. If I have enough, yeah, sure. Let me rinse. The rinse can also be very diagnostic for you. The between pass rinse. If, as you rinse, you're feeling more and more lather get activated, more and more soap get activated into lather, into slickness, if you feel it a great deal, like it starts and maybe you can feel the pastiness on your skin and it just keeps developing, then you might be loading too heavy. You might be not hydrating the lather enough. On the converse, if you rinse and it's quick, now some soaps just do this because it's their nature, but if it's just quick and there's not much slickness there for you, maybe you're overloading with water just a little bit or need to load a little bit more soap. But again, that's kind of one to play around with because a lot of soaps actually do that. They rinse easily, and that's just an attribute of their nature. So I guess I'm mainly talking about the other end of the spectrum where you kind of feel it on your face a little bit more than you normally do, and it just gets slicker, and it's almost like you have this feeling that you could re-lather your whole face with just your hands right there during the pass. During the rinse. I didn't mean to lather on my cheek right there, but see, we don't need a big old thick layer. This little thin, this is perfect. Perfectly enough to do what we need to do. Don't need a big old Santa's beard. Now I'm gonna do a little bit of skin stretching while I do a cross grain pass in this small and very contentious section. Over here it's much nicer. Almost do whatever I want over there. And yeah, I had perfect slickness, great performance. I'm starting to see why some people dislike the Rsrv base. It can be a little finicky, and I bet it's a little bit more problematic for the face latherers to try to get enough water in it, before it starts working out for you. Lately, I've been enjoying the orange of Lucky Tiger Tonic. It doesn't have alcohol, so it's kind to your skin. Sometimes in the winter, that's nice. But I just like this orange scent. And I am shaving with the, the open comb. However, it doesn't give me irritation, so I could use an alcohol splash if I wanted, but I've got a couple of spare bottles of this Lucky Tiger and I kind of want to use it up. But the orange match is a nice transition from the spice into the orange, because I do think there's a little bit of some type of orange scent in the Old Spice. Bergamot or something like that, who knows. It may be a bitter orange scent, but I think there's just a small component. I couldn't pick it out if I tried. Thought I remembered that in the scent notes. So I did the 40-second load, and as you can see, I used up everything I had. And I had to go back a couple of times, 3 I think, to the puck. So with this brush, I could definitely load more soap. I think I will try, nice scent. I think we'll try next time to try a floppier brush and see if that makes me happy. I mean, that's going to be vary per user. See if I can get this nice wet lather and enjoy it with the floppier brush that may not quite flick it so easy and make a mess. That's just my own little preference there. All right, I'm gonna clean this stuff up. Another something to think about. Let's drop this guy on the towel. I think it's gonna work out to be a nice little brush. I don't think I'm gonna have to yank the knot, use this handle. And so what I may do is buy another Yaqi brush with this same handle, get the cheaper one with the synthetic, yank that knot out, and then make use of the nice handle. It's very comfortable, enjoying it, and it's inexpensive, especially if you get the synthetic knot. But I think I'm gonna like this guy. I'm also thinking that a wetter load on this particular soap is more desirable. So I may try that in the future. I like to clean up the threads, otherwise they can kind of get stuck, years down the road as buildup increases. It can be hard to open. All right, well, man, I love the scent of that shave. Love the performance. How's the quality of the cut today? It's pretty good. Pretty good. Not great, but a lot of jobs wouldn't have a problem with this. I probably could do with another trip here, and I think I'm going to attribute that to the pastiness of the soap in this section. I noticed here up in my cheeks it didn't seem to get that pasty, but it did kind of down in this area. So I think that kept my blade from getting as close to the skin as it could have. Something maybe to that effect. But sometimes when lathers are too thick, I get this lack of closeness. All right. Comfortable though. Some people complain about tugging for a blade at 7 uses or 3 uses or something like that. And it's tugging lightly on that first pass, but after that, it's really not a problem at all. And I definitely don't have any lasting discomfort. Face feels great. It's not tight at all, not dry. I have oily skin anyway, but I think the attributes of this soap are going to help that with the face feel. To me, it's less of a concern because that's why they made balms and things like that. If you have dry skin, you're going to lean probably toward the balm side of things, which is basically a face lotion, sometimes with nice, good things for your skin into it instead of just a moisturizer, as well as scent in many cases. The other side is alcohol splash, and that's the traditional kind of method that's been around for decades, where you have scent and alcohol. Sometimes a maker will throw in some skin goodies in that kind of situation too. Sometimes that's good for me. With oily skin, that alcohol can help to break that up a little bit and help balance out my skin. How much water did I use? 4 teaspoons plus a quarter of one. I definitely would not consider this a model lather. I probably had a better one or 2, 3 days ago. If you're looking for a good reference lather for Rsrv. But there we go, 209 uses on the Nacet. I showed it to you earlier. Why not? I'll show it to you again. This time the X is up here on this side. And since I know I'll be using this tomorrow and hit that 210 mark, I'm going to leave a little bit of space. Give it a really good rinse, flush out suds and stuff. I like to shake it, and to safely shake it, I hold one end. That way it doesn't spin on me or anything like that. And now it's ready to be put away. Shouldn't do this with Zamac razors, in my opinion. You need to kind of clean those, especially that joint where the bolt comes in and stuff. That's really the corrosion point for many of those Zamac razors. Nothing wrong with them if you didn't pay very much for them. But man, there's some people out there that are making people pay $50 for a Zamac head razor, and I kind of think that's highway robbery. But that's just me. All right. We're looking good. I've told you all the stats. I'll finish cleaning up after we hang up here. Might try the floppy brush on it next with maybe a wetter load, see what we can get. I think I'm just going to accept the fact that I'm probably not going to get something that's thick, rich in viscosity with this soap, because you have to add enough water to kind of activate it, and that in turn puts it past that tangibly creamy phase. It's still slick, but it's just not kind of thick and creamy. All right, well, we're good. 209 uses down. I sure hope there was something here for you that helped you out. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. You take care. Have a good day.